Hello, everybody. If it's Wednesday, it's Warhammer, and here we are again with you, as always, with Warhammer Weekly. I am here joined by my own personal Gaunt summoner. It's Tom. How you doing, Tom?
Hey, friends. How's it going?
You just getting a beer ready for the show already?
Yeah, it's going to be a long one.
Just preparing up. I like it. I got to watch how much I move. It really changes how bright it is. As you can see, I am not at home. I'm on the road again this week, which we'll get to in hobby time of why that makes me incredibly sad. But at any rate, moving on. Tom, how you doing this week, bud?
I'm doing okay. I just have some lots of stresses going on. Haven't got as much painting as I'd like, which I know you fully relate to. But yeah, things are good. Things are going well. I'll say that.
Yes, and it's just Tom and I tonight. Originally, we were to be joined by Nick from Long Island Wargaming, and we had a nice Skaven conversation planned for you. But Nick, in very happy news, apparently, I don't know, he was taking his wife to delivery. So I know he's having a kid, so maybe they're having their kid tonight. So everybody should send Nick some happy thoughts and wish him all the best with that. So I think of all the excuses I've ever heard to cancel at the last moment, that's a legitimate one. I mean, Tom, do you feel okay with letting Nick off the hook on this one?
I don't know. I mean, maybe. I know that from the delivery room of my twins, I went on an Altdorf raid for Warhammer Online with my Realm Rank 80 Chosen, and I got a piece of Sovereign gear out of that raid. So, I mean, I guess this kind of works, but at the same time, my wife wasn't real happy about it, so it's probably the right decision, Nick.
There you go. All right, well, I mean, we'll return to the wonderful world of RPGs. That's a great lead-in. That's really solid connective tissue there for our feature segment tonight, because as I said, we're going to talk a lot about RPGs, Warhammer in RPGs, both tabletop and video. Both the past, the present, and the future. But first, as always, the news, or roughly the news, or whatever we pass for as news. So, Tom, what do we got this week, buddy? We got a lot. It was a big week.
We do. True to form, as to be expected. If you ever want to know when the big news item is going to come out, it's going to come out approximately 4 hours after our show. And so last week we had a piece of news drop. We had a new a sprue leaked out. Apparently it had been shipped in a Tau box. Oops, whoever made that mistakes. But this was a sprue for one of the new dwarves. One of the new fire dwarves. And so I'm going to pull that up for us real quick.
Yes, let's do that. I'll lock it on Tom while he pulls that up. There we go.
Well, can you see that?
We can see that.
Wonderful. So, yeah, I think it looks fantastic. What are your thoughts, Vince?
Oh, I really like it. I don't like dwarves, but I mean, I think it's a good-looking character. It's obviously some kind of standard bearer. You can see that number 11, and then the stick over here on the right side. That's like his left hand holding the banner. His right hand is holding that big double-headed axe. And you can see he's got a big, crazy, ridiculous head between like number 3, number 1, and number 2, and then also number 4, all being his ridiculous mohawk.
Yep.
Somebody had mentioned if he could also be a rider because he's got a really wide stance.
Yeah.
Obviously, we don't have any riders. We don't have any monster sprue here.
I don't think that this is a rider, and the reason why I would say that is because, somebody laid this side by side with one of the character sprues, like the Dragon Slayer, and this is the exact character sprue size of what they've been releasing.
Gotcha.
And then if you'll notice that all the numbers are sequential as well, and so this is a total sprue. Oftentimes when you have sprues out of multiple kits, the number system is wonky.
Sure.
And so this is an entire character on a single sprue.
Yeah, but most importantly, of course, seeing that Games Workshop Limited 2016 tells us, I think to me, this says we are for sure getting our new dwarves. And that lines with some other rumors we had reported last week, right?
Yep.
Of sort of having a split between, of having sort of a bifurcated dwarf release, half being the sort of classic dwarves and then half being the Fire Slayers, which are a combination of the old Slayers and the Chaos Dwarves, Chaos Dwarves living on the plane of fire.
Yeah, it's also been mentioned that this guy looks remarkably similar to the art pieces, and so I'm going to pull that up real quick, that we've seen. And so if you'll look, the headdress on that sprue, I'll cut back to sprue in just a minute, but the headdress on the sprue, the donglies, the tattoos, like this all matches. This is all in the main book under the dwarves of Azir, or not Azir, of
Akashi or whatever the fire.
Akashi, yeah, exactly. Like this all is under their section where it talks about them like vying for Urgold. This is the picture on that page in the original book, and so here's and I'll jump back to the sprue quick just to show where to go.
Yeah, same axes, same tattoos, right? You can kind of see the faint tattoos engraved. So obviously, same mohawk, same headdress. So it is pretty interesting in that. I think you look at that art that's in that book, and that's mapping out a lot of your releases. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that only raises the interest in the bar further on elves, since we have nothing, right?
Nothing. Yeah, if you'll see, like on the head, you can see the dragon head that we saw in the picture. You see the like the donglies here, of the same ones for the dwarf stuff. Just a lot of very similar imagery. You can see some of the tattoos on the arms and on the chest, like the shoulder tattoo that we saw in the picture. So, I mean, I think that it's exciting for me, because you want to know what I want to see now? I want to see Malarian. That's what I want to see.
Gotcha. Or all the dwarves. I love the idea of bringing Chaos Dwarves back into the fold as sort of aligning with this Rebel Dwarf format, sort of neither good nor evil, just kind of like the fiery plane that they inhabit. That seems like a pretty cool story to me. Because then you get sort of the best of both worlds. You get your classic flavored dwarves, you get your original and your extra crispy, right?
Well, it creates a differentiation, something that we haven't had in official canon for quite a while. Everything else is just dwarves right now.
Yep.
So, yeah.
So expect another big news item to drop in about an hour from now, I would say. We'll find out that, like, I don't know, the new Lord of Change is coming in another week, in an hour from now.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me jump to some of the other releases that we've just had pop up on the radar. The Gaunt Summoner is coming up this next week. And you can tell I'm on images because I'm slow. The Gaunt Summoner popped up this last week, and you can see it looks just like a fantastic caster on disc. What are your thoughts, Vince? I know that you probably have this on pre-order. Am I right?
Well, I do have the Knights. I had the Knights on pre-order at the same time as Archaon, which was like 2 days before they officially went on pre-order. I just called my local game store and said, who knows me, and said, look, you're going to have some stuff go on pre-order, Knights and Archaon. Just put my name down on the list. I don't want to keep calling you every week, so just I'll take it. And yeah, I'm totally going to pick this guy up. I'll tell you a couple things I really love about it. I'm converting my own Chaos Lord on a disc. I think it's cool that we now get the Sorcerer on a disc, because in the base Warriors, in the base walk, there is no Sorcerer on disc right now.
Yeah, and how similar do those blades look to the ones on the throne, or on the Cauldron of Blood, the ones you end up using?
Yeah, exactly. Yes, that is correct. Which is what I ended up using for my converted Doom on a disc. I'll tell you, you know the number one thing I love about this probably, and that's no flight stick. Sure. I hate those stupid plastic sticks. I'm sorry if you love them. That's perfectly fine. You're welcome to. But I find them so awful and annoying. And so any excuse to get things off a flight stick, hence why my entire army of Peg Knights are marching around on broken columns and rocks and trees and everything else. Anything you can do to get people up in the air. This guy is really weird. I'm not sure how well you can see it from here, but his eyeballs are up on his sort of weird head mask, and his face is empty. He's definitely very strange. He's got 2 right arms, which is very classic. If you think of the traditional Herald of Tzeentch on a disc, he also had 2 arms on that side. So he's kind of an interesting blend of the Herald on a disc and the Chaos Sorcerer on a disc, right? He's kind of a little of both.
Yeah, and I would say that his stats aren't too shabby either. Have you looked through the war scroll already?
I did. Yeah. Hopefully it'll catch up and be not fuzzy here. There we go.
The image itself was kind of fuzzy, but yeah, it was definitely an interesting war scroll, all things considered. What caught my eye was that this is a base 5 wound sorcerer that's throwing 2 spells around.
Yep.
And the fact that he auto summons demon units if he's near a portal.
Yeah, that was interesting, right? Incentivizing you to use the terrain to put that into your army because he can call out units of chaos demons. I mean, that's a really powerful ability, right? Yeah. Because a unit of chaos demons. Okay, so like a bloodthirster is a unit of chaos demons, right?
Yep. And so is 50 bloodlet or 50 daemonettes.
Sure. And so, as with all things, the traditional rule with this and the different agenda of Age of Sigmar is, play to have a good time, don't be a douche. And I think this guy just embodies that more. I love the idea that if you put down that realm gate, he can be summoning instant reinforcements. I think that makes for an awesome scenario. Right?
Yeah. Yep.
I think you could totally write a great scenario around that. Rule wise, obviously he's fairly squishy. He's pretty easy to like shoot down and stuff like that. Yeah, in combat, he gets a little better if his opponent isn't a monster or cannot fly.
Which is a neat mechanic. Let me just say that, even though it adds some time, like conditional modifiers like that, I think it's a neat mechanic to kind of roll into some of the fluff, especially for flyers.
Sure, and that's a good mechanic. It's not as potent here as it is on the Chaos Lord on a disc, right? Who basically goes to like an effective 2-up by having that. But yeah, and his spell is what I would call okay, right? Like, it's not bad.
Really? Like, against a low break, like against a horde army, that thing's going to be backbreaking. Because basically what it does is it's the bravery of the unit is your casting DC, and if you successfully cast, you roll a number of dice equal to the unit's bravery. Okay, so that's not...
Yeah, the problem with the spell, Tom, is that it never works perfectly, right?
Sure. Yep.
Like there's so much bravery 10 floating around between us and the demons and lizardmen. There's a lot of bravery 10, which makes the spell almost impossible to cast, right? Because you need a 10 to cast it, because that sets the casting value. But if it goes off, it's going to be really strong because you're going to roll 10 dice, right? But
and you're going to lose half of those models.
Exactly. Well, now, you've got a garbage bravery unit like, Skaven slaves or something, right? It's going to go off easy, but it's also going to do nothing.
Right. Yeah, I originally thought it was for each model in the unit. I didn't think it was, I didn't realize it was only the bravery.
Right. So yeah, I mean, it's fine. I don't, I actually like the Warp Tongue Blade effect a little better. Where if that's especially good sort of character killing, right?
Yep.
Because if there's only one model in the unit, that guy's dead, right? If you roll higher than his bravery, and so that seems pretty worth it. I mean, in general, you want to keep this guy out of combat, and with a 16-inch fly move, he's pretty easily not in combat. Like, even he does, retreat him immediately, right? I mean, he can just bounce in a heartbeat and be on the other side of the board. So yeah, I mean, I think he's good. He's not absolutely amazing, but he's
But what I would say for this, for a 5 wound caster, this guy is worth his weight in wounds. I can compare
2 spells.
Yeah. Like 2 spells, and he has great abilities, fly, 16-inch move, like and effectively a 4-up save. Like, compare him to any other standard 5 wound caster that's floating around, non-named guy. I mean, this guy's worth its weight. Like, he's definitely pulling it.
Sure. I mean, this guy's nightmare is like an army of wood elf shooting type of thing, right? Like, anybody who can put a lot of shots in the air is just going to plink, 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 and this guy's dead.
Sure. But the same can be said of any high elf wizard, or any other standard 5 wound wizard. And this guy still even has a 4-up save, which is going to be better than most of those that are up 5-up.
Well, not against the shooters, but sure.
Why? Oh, combat phase. You're right. Yeah.
So, But yes, I think he is good. He's got easy counters. He has nice abilities. He is a good, flavorful character. I like him. I like the model. I give him a solid. He's a solid B plus.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. We also had something else pop up in the this last week. We didn't share it. We can probably include the link below. It's not in the actual Warhammer TV, but video, like on the Warhammer TV channel at least. A video of the new night, advertising the new nights, came out, and at the 34-second mark, I did a screen grab to, obviously we haven't seen these, we don't have these models in hand yet. We will soon, but can we see that?
It will come up in a second. There you
go. That for scale, there you go. That's here we have 2 Stormcasts staring down one of these knights. Vin said that he also had one to scale of one of these guys next to a Blood Crusher, but unfortunately, I don't have that image. So, but if you're familiar with how tall the terrain is in the background for like the Numinous Oculum, you can get an idea of how big this guy is, as can you with the with just a Stormcast.
Yeah, the Judicator that he is just looming over.
Yes.
Now, body-wise, I think he's about the same size. Like, I think if you plucked him off of his horse and stood him next to the Judicator, I think they're pretty much the same size.
I mean, I would agree with that, because if you look at the base, you can tell he is foregrounded a little bit compared to the Stormcast.
Right.
So this is not a true comparison. Like I said, he is an inch probably closer to the camera from a scale size, but this does help get an idea of what we're looking at here.
Yeah, I think what you learn from this is that those horses, those demonic steeds, are just redonk, right? Yeah. And if you go, they're obviously up on the website right now for pre-order. And if you go look at them, they're just, I mean, the detail level on these demonic steeds are just off the charts. And they're all really cool and unique and creepy. This is the one that only has 2 eyes. But there's another one that has it's got 2 sets of creepy eyes going back its skull. So yeah, they're really cool models. I mean, they are expensive. There's no way around this, right? We talked last week about how it's $100 for 3 of them, but you are legitimately getting 3 character models. Bulk wise, these guys are about if their horses were fully on the ground and their weapons and headpieces weren't so tall, they're just slightly bigger than Blood Crushers. But they in reality, they're quite a bit taller than Blood Crushers because most of their horses are, up. Whereas Blood Crushers are firmly basically 4 feet on the ground, right?
Right. They're all in action poses with high helms, weapons raised in the air. And so you end up getting a model that's 2 times as high as the Blood Crusher at least, even though the scale is approximately similar.
I will also say that they in the same picture that I looked at, they had a Skull Crusher, this guy, and a Chaos Knight. And this guy, for what he is, felt pretty appropriately sized to a Chaos Knight. I liked the size comparison. He didn't make the Chaos Knight feel tiny or something or insignificant, but he felt bigger. They sort of nailed it. He felt just big enough, at least to me. So,
yeah, it'll be interesting to see. It'd be interesting to actually have people get their hands on those models. So, what else do we have? We had some rumors come down the pipe this week of some claiming a GW insider information. In this set of rumors, it was that we have new dwarves coming in, inventory and new character models. Fireslayer King is what was mentioned is coming down the line. I'm not sure.
I have a guess on the name for this guy, right? So what is our guess for the name of that special character we revealed at the top of the news?
I know what my guess is. What's your guess?
Oh, you're taking credit. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I totally am. I think he's the Rage Kindler.
All right. Duerden, is it Fireslayer Rage Kindler, or is it Duerden Rage Kindler?
It's probably a Fireslayer Rage Kindler.
All right. Fireslayer Rage Kindler. You heard it here first. There you go. Because he's clearly the Bannerman, so he's going to have some kind of name like that. And I think Kindler is an awesome word for that. So
right. Hopefully. And clearly it's about rage. So
yes.
Yeah. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what we actually end up. Man, if we nail it, that's going to be hilarious.
It's going to be a pretty good day.
It will be a pretty good day. But we have supposedly more models coming down the line. That Fire Slayer King, I don't know if they're referring to this leak that we just had or if it's something else. Like I said, this seems to be the banner bearer. If it is truly a new army force, we can expect a handful of characters. So for whatever that's worth. Yep. Chaos is supposedly getting new kits, Tzeentch focused. They set a new models for Kairos Fate Weaver and Lord of the Change, similar to the Bloodthirster Sides, but with multiple options of a staff or a strangely mutilated sword spear. The suggestion also was that Slaanesh products are going to get minimized. Not sure if GW's decided to erase them from the fluff. That was speculation.
Let me respond to that real quick because I've got a definite opinion on that.
The answer is no.
Right. I mean, he's all over in the fluff as a hook for the mystery. And you and I have said it a bunch of times, and I really do believe it. He's coming back. She is coming back. The Dark Princess is coming back with the elves, right? Whenever they do the elf release, there's going to be a big narrative event, and Slaanesh will return along with the elves, and you can make a huge story out of it. It just sells models. Like when I look at that, I'm like, I could market the crap out of that, right? So you know that they're thinking the same thing.
Yep. Because we have Slaanesh to a degree. It looks like that at least that product line release could potentially be a little bit farther off. Beastmen models they're suggesting are going to be discontinued by the end of 2016. Here's a hint: they've been discontinued since 2010.
Yeah. Or are you just saying like since the last time they got their book? I mean, yeah.
Or any boxes, a book or any boxes. And yeah, it's been a while. Same thing. It says Bretonia is about to be discontinued. No confirmed date. Guess what? They were discontinued a long time ago.
Sure. I mean, here's the thing. It's sad to see those things go, but it's going to happen, right? I mean, over time, that's like you can't really be that upset about that. There have been armies and miniatures that have come and gone before. You don't miss the ones from the 80s you don't know about, but I guarantee you there were a whole hosts of armies in the 80s and 90s that you knew nothing about, and you probably don't miss. I kind of still miss some of them, but you can still get them. I miss a Kislev army. There was a person who put together a whole Kislev army, and it was in AOS. And one, I can't imagine how much money it cost. Two, it was gorgeous. And
I'm sure.
Of War, all that stuff. Fine.
I have a stack of halflings sitting on my shelf.
Yep.
As they're slowly accumulating, and let me tell you, I miss those Imperial dwarves.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, sure. Or how about the Imperial ogres?
Yeah.
The Empire used to have ogres in it as well. So I mean, it's the kind of thing of like, yeah, some models come and go. Nothing is evergreen. It'd be crazy to think otherwise, right? Like you don't buy your car thinking that like that's going to be the car model for the rest of time.
Hypothetically, there was also a rumor that a new elf unit was coming, but I just can't see that anytime soon. By the way, this rumor monger that was supposedly sharing this doesn't have a real strong track record. Even within if you go back to look at their rumors around AOS. Only about half of what they said ended up coming true. So how much of that is
legitimately had half? Then they were 50% more accurate than everybody else's predictions about AOS.
That said, let me just tell you, we conveyed most of the contents of this rumor weeks ago.
Sure.
And guess what? It's all just the same.
Yeah.
And like anybody could have seen that the dwarves were coming and that Tzeentch was going to be a focus. Another rumor that's just come down the line from Sad Panda.
Hold on. There was one more rumor in that original thing that you skipped, and I want to touch on it real quick. Yeah, so there was a bunch of other chaos stuff in that rumor as well for 40K, like chaos, and that's all fine. Obviously that's probably going to have a release in 2016 for a long time, blah, blah, blah. But the one thing you didn't mention was the rumor of bringing back the Dwarven War Machine with all the choppy axes, which is an old thing that used to exist. This was an old Chaos Dwarf?
No. It was the 6th edition. I know exactly what this is because I've been eyeing it on eBay. And by the way, I can tell you this will, if the Fire Dwarves are coming back and they are Slayer focused, this War Machine is 100% coming back. I will assure you of that. I'm calling it now.
Okay.
And here's why. This was a war machine that came in the Storm of Chaos. It has a substitution war scroll in the dwarves right now. It's like Gurnikson's Axe Hewer, Goblin Hewer, whatever. And it was introduced as a model in the 6th edition Storm of Chaos book for the Slayer army.
Okay.
So it is a war machine for Slayers, manned by Slayers. So if a new Slayer focus is coming, guess what? That model, a new version of that, is probably not far behind.
See, there was also, I'm not wrong here either. There was also way back, there was a Citadel Chaos Dwarf. It was called the Tenderizer. And it was a chair pushed by a bull centaur, and it had like a choppy axe and a big hammery smasher and a mace. And they all just went like this theoretically as it pushed forward. So I'll take either one of those.
Yeah. Obviously, yes, either one of those. I'm leaning towards the axe hewer one, because obviously if we have Slayers, like, this makes sense. Like, this is what, the new force that we would have being supported.
Yep.
So,
all right.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all. Just this evening, we had another rumor come down from Sad Panda that suggested, where's my email? That not only are we getting Tzeentch in the new year, we're going to see a Tzeentch theme running through the entire year, very similar to how we saw Khorne in all of 2015.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I buy the whole year, but I buy them doing a sort of using a Chaos God to sync the story to, right? Like, sure. Khorne is, I think of that scene from, like, it's terrible to reference it, but it's a good line, from, like, X3, where Magneto was like, and chess the pawns go first. And, like, I can see the other Chaos Gods being like, yeah, let's let him go first. Like, just let him, he's real angry, he wants to run out there. You let him go die. See what he can do, then we'll come in and get all the glory. So certainly. That's fine.
Yeah. And so, so I can buy that. The other half of the rumor was that a really super awesome Lord of Change is coming, but they suggested that it hasn't been sculpted yet, which that doesn't match with rumors that we've had floating around for like 2 years now.
Right, it's been done and just sitting on the shelf. Yeah,
right. So maybe he's alluding to talking about specifically like a new Kairos that isn't done yet. But he's suggesting that that this is going to come at the tail end of the Tzeentch release, not at the front end like the Bloodthirster was. So,
right.
Yeah, so we'll see. Super exciting. You have a Tzeentch force. What do you think about it, Vince?
Oh, I'll take any and everything Tzeentch, man. I've committed to building out that force to ridiculous levels. I've got just a monster horde for it. So I love it. I'm loving modeling it. And so I'm all about more stuff for it. I'd love a Lord of Change. I'll expand into demons as long as I can get some cool new demons. Right now, the only good ones are the sharks, the flying sharks or whatever. Manta ray things.
Yeah, you'd have to make everything else that's dumb.
Yep. I'm just waiting on my shark surfers. Shark surfers.
Make it happen, D-dubs.
Exactly.
Okay, so I think that was, or no, we have some tournament news as well, do we not?
Yes. So let me take the first one here. So a friend of the show, Tyler Emerson, keeps a great list. I'm going to link it below when we're done with the show of just everything and anything AOS. So, and it's really amazing. He does a lot of work to keep it all up, and he just updated his tournament list. And if you're interested or want to play in, some fun AOS tournaments, there are a lot going on and coming up in the next couple months. And often it can just be the challenge can be to find them because it's obviously there's not an easy centralized place where you can go to learn about tournaments often. But Tyler has your answer. He keeps a big list. He just updated it with all the new information and links and stuff like that. So you can go straight to his list and then link out to their websites and things like that. So I'm going to throw that down below so that anybody who is interested in an AOS tournament, there you go. And a lot of them are using different forms of comp. Usually it's like Clash Comp is, very popular. We've talked about Clash Comp on the show before. And that had gotten updated recently, which we covered. And so there's just a lot of good action out there if you're interested to go play some AOS with people outside of your group. Or maybe you're having trouble getting a game on. Hey, this could be a fun chance to do so.
Absolutely. We also had this last week saw the release of the 9th Age version 0.10, which came with canon changes. So we brought it up in a video a couple weeks ago, and hey, we got canon changes now. I don't think it has anything to do with our video, but
I think it has to do with a lot of people responding about it. It's one of those things that just everybody has a different opinion on, right? And so the change was that cannons use ballistic skill now. Right? That was the change. There's no more like you just draw a line and it goes. You still have to pick a point and all that stuff, and that's what you target. And there's a bounce distance determined by this bracketed number. And if any model stops the cannonball, like if it fails to kill any model, it stops moving completely. It's not just like monstrous infantry and stuff. Like even a normal trooper, if you don't kill him, the cannonball will stop. But the big change here was the use of ballistic skill. Which to me says, boy, you better have an engineer near your cannon if you want it to be really effective, so he can be passing his ballistic skill over to that cannon. The ordnance rule still stayed the same as near as I could tell. If I'm wrong, somebody correct me. I reread it and I didn't see a change. Still D3+1 wounds, D3+2 against flyers. But I mean, I think that's interesting to put cannons on ballistic skill. It's funny because cannons as another one of those things that have just been so different. In like Magic, right? In every edition of Warhammer, cannons are different, and like we just can't settle on a version we like, right? So hey, I mean, we'll give this one a try and see what people think. I'll tell you the other big change, Tom, and I don't know if you read it yet, but I'm going to tell it to our audience, and I want to get your feedback on it because you and I have done a lot of game design together, and you've been doing a lot of development for me over the years. And so I want to tell you about this rule, and I want you to tell me what you think about it, okay?
Okay, nothing like being put on the spot.
Absolutely. That's the whole point. I purposely did not tell you about this beforehand and knew you wouldn't research hard enough to find it.
Go on.
All right. So parrying in 9th Age, obviously in the previous, in 0.92 or whatever, gave you distracting, right? So it was -1 to hit in melee from the front. Okay. And a lot of people said that's too powerful for a host of reasons, and I generally agree. The Nurgle rule was the worst rule. Everybody hated it. I don't know why we decided to hand it out to everybody and their brother. That seems crazy to me.
Sure.
But that's been fixed now. And so now what having your hand weapon shield combo, okay, so still the same setup as what we're talking about here. Mundane hand weapon, mundane shield, right?
Yep.
What does that give you? It gives you parry. And parry means that you can never be hit on better than a 4+ when attacked in melee from the front. Okay, that's what.
So that means that they have
before other standalone modifiers. Let me point that out. So in the weapon skill comparison, it eliminates the side of the chart that says 3. That's what it's doing.
Oh, okay. So it sets the minimum bar to hit at 4.
Correct. Yes. So you could still need 5s to hit somebody, right?
And you could still need 4s, right?
What's that?
You could still need 4s.
Correct. But if the unit has parry, you're never going to hit that unit on 3s, right? So like if you're a weapon skill 5 troop and you're attacking
so that benefits
like weapon skill 3.
So that benefits skeletons.
Yeah, you're getting it like so. Give me your full thoughts on it. Yes.
So what this is going to do is this incentivizes really terrible troops to use shields, because what it's going to do is it's going to shore up those weaknesses. But any elite troops that have higher weapon skill, they will never benefit from shields.
Yes, that's exactly right. It's an asymmetric rule, right?
Yep.
That is to say, elite troops gain no benefit from it.
Yep.
And garbage troops
gain all you can't say no benefit. So they would only gain benefit in situations where elite troops are terribly outclassed.
Sure. Where there's even more elite. I mean, like, let's say you're a weapon skill 5 troop. In the current way that that's handled in 9th Age, I mean, exempting characters, there really isn't that much stuff in the game that's weapon skill 6. I'm not going to say there's nothing. There's stuff, of course.
Sure.
But like in the vast majority of matchups, that's a non-starter if you're weapon skill 5, right?
Yeah. That's what that means, is that it is inordinately benefiting weaker troops, and it is inordinately penalizing elite troops.
Yeah. And so the interesting part about that to me is that when you get to armies that don't have those garbage troops.
Pity for dwarves.
Sure, and rely on a bunch of dudes with high weapon skill who can hit effectively and then run up against the wall of garbage that can now effectively make them, pretty tough. It becomes harder for the elite armies to anvil up, to build up their sort of anvils, right? But whereas the garbage armies can build up their meat anvils.
Right. Yeah. So the answer then is, to go with 2 weapons or 2 great weapons, for example, elites can then only, for them to be valuable, unless they're sporting a ward save, they're only gonna, your strongest value for benefit is going to be with great weapons, 2-handed weapons.
Sure, something, a special weapon, right, of some kind, yeah, exactly. And the problem is there's not a huge amount of extra. Where my mind's at is most of the special weapons give you more killy power, right?
Yeah.
Defendy power, and so elite troops become they're perfectly fine hammers. You're incentivized to make them hammers, right? Because that's where they get benefit. But there's not a lot of ways to make them good anvils anymore. So I'm thinking dwarves, elves are a little different because elves still have the lightning reflexes, so they can get the +1 to hit. Although it will prevent them from ever getting all the way to where they could get otherwise.
Yep.
And chaos, people like that, right?
Yep.
People running around with a lot of more or less where the floor is weapon skill 4, and they've got a decent amount of weapon skill 5.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd have to say, I don't like it. I don't like that change. I haven't liked any of these so far. I feel like it should just be the 6-up ward. I really felt. I'm sorry. I thought the T-shirt ward was pretty good.
Design harder. That's what I would say. No,
yeah.
I think that it's asymmetrical, and I think that inevitably it lends itself to certain things benefiting inordinately from shields, and some things being penalized inordinately by using shields.
Right. But time will tell. Obviously, we're still in beta, and I believe that this is sort of the beta release before the end of the year. I think they're not planning to go to their 1.0 until April, which is good. So there's still plenty of time for feedback and all of that. So, if you really love it, go tell them you really love it. If you don't like it, go make your opinion be heard. So that would be my advice there. That is, obviously the huge benefit to this community program. It doesn't mean that just because you lodge a complaint, it's going to change the next day. That's not how this works. But it's more about you adding your voice and being heard in some way. It certainly gets read. It certainly gets considered. Doesn't mean that change is going to happen. But, people are examining what you have to say, and I think that's highly valuable.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. I think that brings us to the end of our news items. Angry Redbeard mentioned that the chat is disabled. Yeah, I don't know why comments are disabled now when you do a Hangout video. I don't know why. Q&A is on, so you can always throw a question in the Q&A, and we'll be happy to tackle it. I'm going to look into that to see if I can figure out how to stop making comments be auto-disabled, but, I've been on the road all week, and so I apologize. I haven't had time to screw with it. Which leads us into hobby time, and I'm going to go first. I am working on Archaon, and
no, you're not. He's at home.
You shut your face. Yes, I know I'm not working on him right now. It's killing me. I started Archaon. I picked him up at basically 12:01. On Friday nights. I went into my game store, which was nice enough to stay open a few minutes past midnight. And I grabbed him and headed home. And I spent until I think I was up till 6 in the morning putting him together and converting him because I don't like the heads that come with him. And I was promised Archaon on a triple-headed dragon or a multi-headed dragon. So that's what I did. I converted him over to be a giant triple-headed dragon, and he's going to lead my Tzeentch forces. So I gave him the big Stormcast. I replaced Archaon's head with a big like Stormcast Celestant head and stuff like that, because all my Tzeentch troops have the golden face masks, the faceless masks of Tzeentch. Much like that new guy. Look at the Gaunt Summoner, no face. Yep. Same thing. That's what I'm going for. And I got him, I think, up to like 60%. I basically spent about, I'm going to say I spent about 20 hours the next day painting him. I was up till about 5 a.m. the next day. So he's at about 60, 65%. That model is gorgeous. I had to like rig up a special thing to hold him, to paint him, because he's so ridiculously big. I mean, he's just insane. I compared him to my Terrorgeist that I put on top of a pyramid.
Sure.
So like the Terrorgeist is way off the ground, right? And he's taller by a significant amount than the tip of the Terrorgeist's wing. That side wing that's going like this on the Terrorgeist. He's still bigger than that. And I'm going to put mine on something even more ridiculous. I'm not putting him on a regular base on that little bit of rock that he has. No. My Archaon's going on an even bigger, crazy base. I already have it set aside and built. He's going to be like 18 inches tall.
On the Scalding Man.
Just on top of the whole building? No, not that insane. But I'm going to add like somewhere 4 to 6 inches to him.
Oh, that's a terrible idea. Awesome. I have been working on, you know how I feel about your terrain. See, you don't want to make terrain for the board, but you'll make it for your miniatures.
Correct. I'll put terrain on. That's where terrain is useful, on your base. That is accurate. Yes. Look, he should be done this weekend. I think I should be home this weekend. And so I plan on basically plowing another, hopefully 20 hours into him, and that should get him up to done. So.
Ridiculous. I've been working on my dwarves a little bit. I've been behind. I have some gyrocopters almost ready to be washed. So, and I got this last week, my Christmas present to myself. My Chaos Hellfort. And just to give you some scale, this is a very large box. And it's really big. And as I kind of looked at it, I realized this really is half of a fort, like in the truest sense. With what they've given you, like they've even given you pieces. They've given you pieces from all of the major sets. So and in that they've given you end caps that you can't get any other way of like collapsed walls. So like if like you're playing a game and walls collapse as part of the narrative or whatever, you can actually replace it with a collapsed walls and have a breach. And there are special rules for all of that within the boxes. And it actually has, like I said, pieces from all the different sets. So, for example, the Overlord Bastion, or the big one, it comes with 2 of the stair sets that only come in that, for example. And each one of those is normally like a $130 kit. And so this is like, this whole thing from War Store is like $232 or something. So it is a deal. So I picked this up and I love it. I loves it. And so I'm going to be working on that on the side as I finish dwarves. At the end of the month, I'll work on my Hellfort and then get back to dwarves at the beginning of every month for my Age of Sigmar.
Nice. Well, I look forward to that. Yeah, obviously the budget of Sigmar continues. I finished my Chaos Lord on Manticore there at the same time I was converting over Archaon or whatever. And so I'm happy. That was my first one. And I think I've got a couple other things teed up for that. The budget of Sigmar obviously is our, community PMP, the Painters Motivating Painters Google Plus community army building project. If you're interested, as always, there will be some links down below. We just finished up month 2. We're in month 3. So you could still certainly get in and join, and you'd be playing a little catch up, but there's some fantastic deals out there. Tom basically got a whole army in a month, and you could too. So yeah, there we go. That's hobby time. As always, we love to know what you're working on. So, do share it with us, or join up the PMP and share it there. So let's move to our newer segment, which is, what have we been watching? So, Tom, you've got a video. What have you been watching, Tom? What would you like to say for this week's What Have You Been Watching?
Yeah, so when we set up this new segment, we didn't say that it had to be Warhammer related.
That's true.
In my video this week is not Warhammer related. It's the new Batman vs Superman trailer. And so if you would like to watch terrible in action,
go ahead. I'm sorry. I can't help myself. That's my gag reflex there.
I understand. If you would like to see terrible in action, go check out the Batman vs Superman trailer. If you really like that, if you really think that it looks good, I would like to say it's your, taste based, blah blah blah, all the disclaimer that Vince adds. But no, I think it's going to be terrible, and you're probably a terrible person for liking it.
Wow, that's a harsh statement, Tom. Because there's going to be some people out there who like this. You are getting us thumbs down right now by saying that.
I know I am.
I will backstop you by saying you're free to like whatever you like. It's perfectly fine.
No, I hear that. I just I had a lot of hopes for this. I wanted it to be just good, and despite the first trailer, there were warning signs, but I was like, no, this is going to be good. I'm a believer. I'm a true believer. And then I heard Lex Luthor laugh. Sure.
Yeah, and you were like, oh boy.
And I'm like,
and then you saw the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, Lord of the Rings troll / whatever else that Doomsday was, and you were like, oh boy.
I'm like, oh yeah, this is DC. This is Green Lantern style. So, anyways, yeah.
From the studio that brought you Green Lantern. Ryan Reynolds' epic masterpiece.
I don't want to fuel the Marvel versus DC because I'm sure we have people on both sides of that, but you just can't even talk about this in comparison with like the Civil War trailer. It's not even in the same ballpark. So anyways, that's what I've been watching, and it's disappointing. And I'll just end with, hey, guess what? In the Batman vs Superman trailer, Batman has his gun.
He does, but that's not that. That's actually fairly accurate to the comic, which I'm sure somebody will point out.
I'm sure it is. I don't care. Batman has a gun.
Okay, got it. All right, so mine will be Warhammer related, and I'm going to cheat and pick 2 videos. Since Tom cheated and didn't even pick something Warhammer related, I don't feel bad about it. So I have 2 videos I want to recommend people to go watch. And again, as always, these will be linked down below once the video gets posted. So the first is Doom and Darkness on his channel. First of all, if you're not subscribed to him, you should go do so. He has a great channel full of 40K and 9th and AOS. So whatever your interests are, he's probably making a video about it. And he's a great guy. And he did a painting series called Just Do It. And he shows you how to super batch paint about 30 Saurus in, very quickly in 3 days to a tabletop standard that look good. And, his painting tactics, I would not call them Vince approved. But he did.
He does not call them Vince approved. That's the title itself.
Yes, that's correct. I'll link the first one in the series down below, and you can watch from there. But he produces good tabletop quality miniatures, and something that he says in there is it's better to have your miniatures painted than not. I cannot agree with that more. And if he's helping to stop the problem of gray miniatures in the world, then I say more power to him. So go check that out if you want to see some good batch painting stuff. I'll also point out if you're doing Lizardmen, it is a great alignment. Lizardmen work really well for it. If you're doing like Empire Halberdiers, I'm not sure his tactics would work, but for things like Lizardmen or things of that nature, it's aces.
As a disclaimer, I just want to add, I did actually watch that video, and it was really funny. It was good.
It's solid. The other video I want to point you out to, everybody too, is I'm sure most of our people are also subscribed to the Sustainable Center. But in case you didn't watch it yet, Ant put up a video this week that was actually like a snippet cut out of one of his paint-episodes, where he's discussing with TNT Wargaming the idea of making each unit viable in 9th and some of the challenges to that. And they propose some interesting ideas, and he talks about scenario play and the importance of it. I thought it was a really nice little discussion between the two of them. I thought that there was some really good ideas raised in there about sort of, where innovation and design could be in the future. And I think it's really cool. So go check that out. Again, that will be linked down below. So real quick, Errol Z said he's in the midst of putting the finishing touches on his work on the Herald Deathwolf icon he is putting on a Citadel figure case. All right, nice. Hey, you're getting something done. I like it, and we're here to keep you company while you're doing it. Okay. So let's then turn to our feature segment. And that is going to be role-playing RPGs in the world of Warhammer. And, you know, a couple quick things on this. So one, way back in like one of the first episodes of War Games, there was a discussion of what is the unique value proposition or what makes Warhammer special, and Materam won it with the narrative. And I think that's true. I think that it is the total package. It's not the game rules. It's not even the models. They help. All of those are necessary components, but they're not the tipping point, right? I think it's the story, the narrative, the fluff, the way that everything pieces together, whether it's old world or new, the compelling characters. I think this is very true in both 40K and fantasy. That really is the glue that binds us all together. And I know it's certainly something that got me interested in the hobby, reading the narrative, the fluff. And those things can get tooled out a lot more in RPGs than they can in the tabletop world. Because the reality is the tabletop wargaming has never been that much about expressing narrative. You can layer it on there, and it's fun to do so, but it's never going to be as deep of an experience as, you know, role-playing or something like that. And Tom and I have been role-playing together for more of our lives than we haven't been. That's a true statement. And we've had many experience with RPGs in Warhammer, both actual tabletop and video form. And so I thought, as a fun thing tonight, we would talk through, you know, some of those sort of ideas. So I thought first we'd start out with like the tropes, if you will, from, you know, the Warhammer world that sort of initially attracted us, right? And that sort of thing. So Tom, do you want to kick us off there with the tropes of the old world that drew you in and made you want to play in that world, whether it be video game, tabletop, anything?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say for me, one of the big things here was that it was the standard fantasy. Like this is like generic fantasy as one would come to expect. But every single force had a twist. Okay. And so what I mean by that is like, yes, we have orcs and goblins, but not all orcs and goblins are hooligans. Like soccer hooligans. Like, and the character that arises from the interaction between the orcs and goblins and all the meaty flavor in, hey, why ain't you fighting? Like stuff that is wrapped up in that. Or like anybody can have an undead army, but we have the Tomb Kings, which are like pulling from Egyptian lore and Egyptian pharaohs, and so you have like these monstrous constructs, and you have the extra like baggage. Again, like it's just these small little tweaks to each of the different stories. Your high elves, for example. Yes, we have high magic elves, and elves have always been kind of aloof and snooty, but now you have a race that actually is somewhat to the degree of being almost morally gray. You know, they're the best good guys in a sense in the world, and yet they're sometimes not. They have flaws, and by saying flaws, I mean true flaws to the point of like being morally dubious flaws, even for your high elves. And so it's just these small little things that have added some really interesting elements to each of the forces. And that for me, it's often been the armies that I've been drawn to are those that have like historic character to them. So something about like the Babylonian imagery in the Chaos Dwarves, or the Egyptian imagery in the Tomb Kings, or the tribalism in the Forest Goblins, and I could just keep going down the line. It's generally those things that would pull the Roman-esque feel of the High Elves. Those things would pull me in to the various stories that, yes, these are High Elves, yes, these are orcs and goblins, but they have character that is only offered here in the Warhammer world.
Yeah, I agree. You know, I think of like the Holy Roman Empire, you know, and just all the colleges of magic, yep. The warrior priests and witch hunters. Like the empire itself was so rich. You know, it was the first army I played when I started many, many years ago. And even though I moved on to Skaven, which is the better empire, again, it's the same thing. Every little component was just so chocked full of this just fascinating detail, right? Of character and flavor, the clans in the Skaven, right? And the way that they are, and the way that they're set up, and the way that they infight with each other. Yep. And so I think all of those things made for a really, a really like grokkable world, because everybody was relatable, or most things were relatable. Honestly, like even reading the Tomb King stuff, which is like an ancient Egyptian empire, as you mentioned, this weird undead force. When you read about like Calidia or Cetra, they're just cool characters. They're you understand their motivation. They've got goals. They've got flaws. Right? These are things you can relate to, and I think those kinds of things really drove the interest. Right?
Yep.
They certainly drove the inner narrative of the story. I think of how many people were probably pulled in by like Felix and Gotrek, right? Of this sort of classic human and dwarf pairing. Yeah. And which had sort of echoes of the old classic Fafhrd and Grey Mouser and stuff like that, right?
Yep.
So I think that those tropes were really solid, and they were the strongest aspect of the old world, for sure. Did you ever, and so would you think those drew you into wanting to experience them deeper in an RPG, be it video or tabletop?
What aspect of it?
The detail level, like that you felt you couldn't get enough out of playing the tabletop war game. So you're like, I want to experience more of this. I want this in an RPG format, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I've on many occasions, like, dude, the Mordheim setting is so compelling. We were talking about some of our D&D marathons coming up and what we wanted those to be, and I was contending very heavily to do a Mordheim game, because I'm in. Like I want to see sword masters and witch hunters and in the city of the damned, for whatever reasons that they've been drawn to that wretched place.
Sure. Yeah, I've played a couple tabletop games in the Empire, and it's just ridiculous fun, right? Because I wanted to get in there. You want to play that Empire witch hunter or pistolier who encounters Skaven for the first time, right? That kind of thing. And so I thought we would transition from that into our second question, which was this is sort of the second topic I want to cover. I think the things that drew us into the old world are well known, and I think it was so beloved, and that's why a lot of people were sad to see it go. It certainly got a big ending, but that makes parting is still such sweet sorrow.
Yeah.
And so I think that that leads me to the next thing, which is, what is, like, do you have a good memory of playing in a video game or a tabletop game, in the Warhammer world that you thought was particularly compelling and emblematic of what is Warhammer? Like, I could only experience this in the Warhammer world.
Yeah. Do you want me to go first, or do you want to go?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I would say for me, I loved Warhammer Online. Say what you will about it. It was a fantastic game. The premise of the game was that the world was truly, in a sense, at war. Chaos had invaded into the Empire, and the orcs and goblins had busted and were sacking into the dwarven holds, and the Skaven came in and were messing with the dwarves as well. And the dark elves invaded Ulthuan, and yeah, I guess it kind of sounds like the end times. It was just a very visceral experience where you got just a real taste of just all of the races in the world. And I remember putting Cetra in the ground after making my way through the tombs of the Tomb Kings, or saving Alariel in the Lost Vale as it had been taken over by Inkari. And so it's funny that, like, my experience to a lot of the lore in a very, like, visceral fashion was in this game. Yeah. And now I'm playing these tabletops, and so as I'm bumping into names, I'm like, oh, Inkari, Slaanesh. Oh yeah, I remember that. Like, I remember that bitch. She was tough. And stuff like that. So like those things were very, very real experiences for me, not just names on a page as I bumped up against a lot of that stuff. And as I said, I was sacking Alt Dwarf on my Realm Rank 80 Chosen as my twins were on the way to being born. But I would say out of all those memories, to me, kind of the most stereotypical was rolling up onto the shores of Nordenwatch.
Ah, yes.
And defending
Nordenwatch.
And defending the outer shores of the Empire.
Yes, I think like the fact that that game had a huge PvP focus served it very well. Because obviously Warhammer, the eternal question, why ain't you fighting, right? And so just the being able to just even be a little putz and just jump in and start murdering people was an incredibly positive experience. I'll actually go to tabletop. So I have actually played in sort of the Warhammer world a couple times, several times actually, but always through D&D. Like we always just adapted it for the D&D rules, and in various and sundry editions, doesn't really matter. And I think one of my most favorite memories from it was we were all playing like Empire heroes. Okay, I think there might have been a Dwarven Slayer in the group, but if you can imagine, we were all various heroes of the Empire. And like there was somebody who was like in one of the wizarding colleges, right? There was like a acolyte warrior priest. There was a witch hunter, that kind of thing, right? Everything you would expect. And we were investigating some mystery we're like outside of Altdorf, and we found like these old ruins. We dig down, like we find some undead, we kill them, and then we dig down and we find some Skaven. And we're fighting Skaven, and it's just, you're pistol blasting Skaven, and then all of a sudden out of nowhere comes, these rat ogres, right? And it's just like on the tabletop, it's funny because rat ogres have been a joke for so long. But in the game, when you're like just some low level, putz, like some level 1 or 2 dude who barely can fire his gun straight, to have a couple rat ogres just bust in the room was just terrifying. And these things just came in and started wrecking us. And I was like, this is the Warhammer world right here. This is the terror. That's why these creatures cause fear. Because my God, these things are horrid, right? Like when you're sort of detached from it when you're kind of playing the general, and you tend to be commanding these heroes and monsters and these very powerful things that are certainly the equal and beyond of any common rat ogre. But when you're one of those halberdiers on the line, that thing is scary. It's a freaking nightmare. It's going to rip you in half. And so, like, being able to feel that from that perspective, I thought was something really awesome that you could only get out of that RPG experience. And I really liked it. So there you go. Any other positive memories of Warhammer Online or any kind of RPG you want to share before we move to our next question?
No, I would just say that another video just dropped, by the way. This is another YouTube thing that I didn't mention. For Total War, and it was their war, like their cartography map. And it is for any, like, it looks like Total War Warhammer for any, like, true Old World fan is going to be a must-buy. Because just their campaign map is this, like, super interactive, detailed, like, flyover map of the Old World, of the entire Old World. And it is just ridiculously beautiful. And so I'll make sure I'll pass that link to Vince so that he can post it below of just, again, this isn't the gameplay. This is just the flyover map of the Old World. And it's super compelling.
Yeah, that's awesome. There is something pretty magical about that, being able to zoom in on the map and look at all the nooks and crannies, right? The details. It was one of those things in war where you were going and exploring these places that you had fought in with random hills and forests scattered around or whatever, right? But to actually be running around in these places in the Empire, in Ulthuan, in Nagarath, right? And in the Chaos Wastes. Like the first time you ran into the Chaos Wastes, right? And saw the pink lightning, and you got like in the public quest where there was like the weird Keeper of Secrets at the end, right? You were like, whoa, we are off the map here, buddy. Let me tell you what.
I mean, I'll be honest. It was their rendition of Bastion Stair, is why I bought the Chaos Dreadhole. because Dras Dreadheld is the Bastion Stair from that video game. It is that dungeon. And it's just like it captured my imagination. And I can close my eyes and still think about all of the hiding spots in Prague to go as hordes of chaos or chaos or order, depending on like which side you were on, came sweeping through the city.
Sure.
Like, oh God, here they come.
Into that middle scenario where you could hide that, where you could get people stuck in that area they couldn't get out of with your chosen. That's what you're thinking about.
It is, and there are so many memories. Yeah,
good times. So that's obviously we've played a lot. We've seen a lot of games. We still have Total War coming in the old world. So let's talk about the using these things in RPGs, be they tabletop or video games, and when we come to like 9th Age and AOS. And I think it's really interesting because both have challenges, right? To be used in various ways. And so I thought maybe we'd start with AOS. Okay, so let's attack that first. That one obviously could be licensed and you could make video games and stuff about it. But I mean, part of any good RPG tabletop experience is that you can do whatever the hell you want at your own table, right? You don't need anybody's license or permission to do it. So certainly you could do it there. What do you see as like the big challenges, and what do you see as the big opportunities for doing, RPG in a sort of Age of Sigmar setting?
Like, so adding narrative to the Age of Sigmar game, or
no, like playing it as an RPG, like taking the role of a character in that world in Age of Sigmar, right? You're in the same way I described inhabiting it there, be it through a video game or through an actual just pen and paper, right?
All we have in Age of Sigmar, that's going to be a very broad statement, so forgive me. All we have in Age of Sigmar are Tatooines. We have no Mos Eisleys.
Okay. I got it. You're saying too much open space, not enough centralized hives of scum and villainy where you can sort of anchor yourself to.
If I'm adventuring in those places, I can go to Kwashi and walk among lava fields.
Sure. No, that's fair. Here's what I'll say. I'll say yes, although I think we're more empowered, right, to make this stuff up. We have these mentions of cities and stuff. Yeah. One of my big complaints is I know they're putting out more detail in the worlds in the novels. And look, I'm going to be honest, I don't want to read them. I don't care how good they are. I don't have the time, right? Yep. I want to see more of this stuff, more of this detail surfaced up into the main books. Like, I bought the Order Battle Tome. I didn't feel like I learned that much more about the world.
Yep. Yeah, like, let me just say, in this age of obfuscation and not providing information for these regions, and diffusing that into all of their product line, which is somewhat intentional. They talked about, you can talk about if you want the designer that was talking about this recently. We had previously chatted about this, but like, our friends are going to be Wikipedias. That emerge and gather and collate this data. So if somebody wants a project, there's a project, is make an Age of Sigmar Wikipedia that collates all of the lore data from all the different sources. Because that's something that we don't have. We don't have a timeline in any real sense. We don't know when those creatures were having that conversation regarding in the Seraphon book. Does that make sense? Like, beginning to gather some of that stuff, we just don't have that. And so, nor do, like, you would have to buy a bunch of like $60 books in order to actually gain that data. So that would be a project that anybody that does have that stuff, that'd be good. Because nobody wants to buy all that stuff.
Sure, I agree. I think in many ways, so when I think about it from a tabletop perspective, I think it has a lot of the same challenges as role-playing in Planescape, if anybody ever role-played in that back in 2nd edition D&D, where you've got this huge, vast expanse where almost anything can happen, right? It's this crazy, magical, almost infinite expanse of endless possibilities, which is great. It's empowering if you're very creative and you can just sort of take the realm of life and you can make up some cities and some bases of operations and places where the wood elves have holed up and the trees have holed up or whatever, and where Nurgle is invading and the Skaven are invading and whatever, right?
And some of that is there. It's like, to their credit, like, there are some of those battle maps that have like weird location names that we know nothing about.
Yep. Yeah, those maps are definitely your friend. Those couple in the books that are those beautiful sort of 3D maps
Right. But
That would
again,
be
we know
fun.
nothing about any of those areas or what those cities are or what lie in those regions. They're just names on a piece of paper.
Right. So it's great if you're super creative and you don't mind making all of it up, but it's obviously a big challenge if you don't feel like doing that work, or you don't feel like you're that creative of a person where you want some more assistance from them to sort of kickstart your ideas. Because like what are your adventures in Sigmarime or whatever, in Spaceship Sigmar? That's not I guess you ride a lightning bolt down to one of the normal worlds every so often. Like I don't know what that looks like. And I guess that's my other big challenge.
Well, that's your space station. That's where you hang out and get your missions from.
It's a good point. I don't know what the day-to-day life looks like a lot for anybody in this world. I talked about that previously. Of one of my big problems with chaos in the old world was I don't understand what a day in the life of a chaos warrior looks like.
Yep.
Right. And so I read the story that had been sent to me, which I was much appreciative of. That book is totally awesome, called Laughter of the Dark Gods. I do highly recommend it. And that first story sort of shows a Empire person's journey into chaos lorddom, and eventually things happen at the end. I won't spoil the story because it's honestly super worth reading. It's a really great short story. The problem is even that, which is detailing this guy's sort of journey into chaos, I still didn't get a sense of what was happening in the day-to-day. In fact, if anything, the sense of it that I get is that in the chaos wastes, people aren't really conscious most of the time. They don't have any conscious sort of examination of what was going on with time. Things just flow by. So I wonder, what does the day-to-day look like in the mortal realms? Like, right? Like you're a blood reaver or a blood warrior just roaming around the plane of fire, right? Doing whatever you do.
Looking for a fight.
Like when you're not in a battle? What are you doing? What's going on there? You hunt? You have to get food? What do you eat? Do you have arguments? Do those guys drink beer? Do they just sit around and arm wrestle each other?
Where
for
do
corn?
they get the beer from? Like, where's the wheat grown on the plane of fire?
Right. These are questions to which I have no answer. So like, there's just, I feel like I want more of that. And that's a real challenge to it. This would be less important to a video game, obviously, because video games can be very purpose-driven things, right? So when I think about like role-playing in that kind of world, I could totally see several targeted video games where you took the role of like a chaos lieutenant, like a video game based kind of like on the Call of Chaos thing, right? Where you're sort of a chaos champion and you're fighting your way up to try to become a demon prince or whatever, right? And collecting your warband and fighting other chaos and fighting the good guys. I think that could make a sweet video game. And you're sort of customizing your dude and whatnot. I think that could be a fun role to take.
And to a degree, even Battlefields, like if you have a strategy game, that wouldn't matter. Like I think about like StarCraft, like you never cared what planets you were on. Like the planets didn't matter. That was just the backdrop to the fight. And so you could get away with that. But in a role-playing style, like that, it's a lot more difficult.
Yep. Absolutely. All right. So let's turn to some Ninth Age. Okay. So to me, the challenge with Ninth Age when I look at this is, one, obviously there's something you can productize or license, at least not yet.
Right.
I don't know if they're going to try to go for that. But so we're talking mainly about in the homegrown space or whatnot for bringing that in. And I guess my thought on that is, why would I bother? Right. Like it's enough old world that I would just stick with the old world. I just use the old world fluff and play with it, because I feel like whatever Ninth Age fluff they come up with, I don't envy the background team of Ninth Age, because I think they have an impossible task.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If they need to make fluff that is enough like the old fluff that you don't piss anybody off, because you're going to get people pissed off if you drift too far, but different enough that it's clearly not the exact same IP, and different to have its own unique fingerprint, so it's literally not just a copy paste out of the existing fluff. And frankly, I'm not sure that can be done. I mean, like I said, I don't know it can't be done. I don't envy them the task. I wish them the best, but holy crap, that is perhaps an insurmountable challenge, right?
Yes. I'm just trying to think about even what that would look like from a design space, and there are competing priorities there. that I don't know that the tensions there can be resolved. I think their best bet would be top-down design, where certain rules help guide certain aspects of the development of the faction. So, for example, I think about the development in Ninth Age regarding Dark Elves and how their cult system works, and how that, like, whatever you choose on that decision guides then the construction of the rest of your army. And leaning into that lore-wise. And so what you're doing is that you have a blanket system that's informing the ground level of who your army is and their identity and stuff like that. But not all armies have that, and not all armies have been able to do that in a satisfactory way to introduce a new element like that. And I can't promise that those would end up looking like Warhammer races.
Right.
Like that wouldn't necessarily, like, it ends up working for the Dark Elves fairly well, but that wouldn't work for everybody, and that's going to piss off veterans that want a playable Warhammer.
Right, that effectively want to be in Bretonia or the Empire, or have their beastmen look like beastmen, or whatever the case is. And I do think that is an advantage if they don't drift too far. If they can get it just far enough to where it's unique and it's fine, it's defendable or whatever, then that does preserve, right, enough of the old world that we can see, like in the Venn diagram overlap, it's close enough. Yeah. And I think that is a big advantage, because it keeps that old world fluff and story alive to some degree. But boy, it's gonna be a rough road to walk. Like I said, that if you thought people were really, complaining or giving feedback about something in the rules, just wait till you start changing fluff out from under people, and boy, then the nerd fights begin.
We could have probably our own War Games episode on just that.
Yeah, no kidding. On just like, what's the best fluff? What shouldn't be changed? All that kind of thing. Yeah. So that's kind of, I think, everything I wanted to touch on with RPGs and Warhammer. Tom, did you have any other thoughts you wanted to hit on before we leave this topic behind?
No. I mean, I think that it is a testament to the lore that had been created. That and the function of that lore in bringing people to the tabletop. So back when we talked about, like, what would have happened if any of us were Kingford at GW, and one of the things that I said was that everything that in my product line would funnel into everything that we do would funnel into the miniature line, which is our main business. Okay. And I think that in a sense they were doing that. I came into the table in some ways, or they were doing it in some areas, and they could have done it better in other areas. But, like, I came into tabletop because of my experiences playing a video game. That's just the reality. And I think that my own experience, and I know that of many others, is a testament to how strong that lore was. And I think that it's a disappointment. Like, our stories are testaments to how strong and how inviting and how arresting that lore was. And that is not something that I have been convinced yet about Age of Sigmar.
Sure. And, to speak to that, so you mentioned the thing that you sort of gave me a prompt earlier, so I'll pick it up now.
Yeah.
So there was a great interview with Gav Thorpe, okay, who obviously had a lot of impact on Warhammer history. He's written a lot in both 40K and fantasy, and he still does. And he's a fantastic author and a really great guy. Follow him on Twitter. He's great. And so he had a great podcast interview. And he talked about how in the nascent days of Warhammer fluff, they had years to screw it up, right? Like, he talked about how, like, when they started, they didn't know what they were doing. They were just kind of building things, changing things, retconning things, just seeing what worked. And they cycled through tons of different fluff and kind of churned and had bad ideas and replaced them with good ideas. And there really wasn't a level of scrutiny about it, right? It wasn't until kind of probably the late 90s when it got more locked in that it even became a thing that people really glommed onto and super attached to in a permanent fashion. And he talked about how the attention, the scrutiny paid to the Age of Sigmar fluff here at the beginning is so much more intense than he ever experienced back in the day when he started writing for them, right? And I think that's true. The unfortunate reality of it is, and fair or not, we want them to go from 0 to 60 in 2 seconds flat, right? They had years to get up to that speed before. We want it now in weeks or months, like at the longest months, right?
It's the MMO game development problem.
Yeah. Sure, absolutely. You want to expound upon that idea, or you just want to drop that?
No, I'll briefly. I don't want to go too much on a tangent, but the idea is that MMOs entering the market now are much different. Have a inordinate uphill battle because the development times to actually create the MMOs and get them up on their feet. They're entering a market where they're battling other MMOs that have been established for a decade,
right?
And so they're expected to be able to compete in content and compete in all of the very, very robust ways that they just can't do it. And so it's a very similar thing with lore, is that they're spinning up something new, and then we're expecting them to compete with these other things that have storied histories.
Yep, absolutely. So time will tell on that. I certainly think they've certainly shown more of an appetite for digital lately. And so I'd like to see what they do with that on a go forward. I'm confident that at some point we're going to see some Age of Sigmar video games, RPGs of something. I want to see if they had obviously I would feel kind of remiss if we didn't mention that Warhammer actually had an RPG for a long time. It changed hands many times since its original inception. It was a very unique and interesting game. It was super gritty. And it really, really smacked of the world that it was a part of. Like, like Ratcatcher was one of the things you could be. I mean, just in an Empire City, like it really sets the bar and tells you you're not like an epic hero like classic D&D or something. You are barely surviving. There was a real like classic sword and sorcery character churn to it. And it's certainly a very compelling game. I would love to see what. It was a game where all the rules and everything about it was emergent out of the world, right? That's what I'm saying. It was this whole cohesive, unified picture.
From a design standpoint, it would be a top-down design.
Yeah, I mean, sure, maybe. I don't know that that's necessarily how they wrote it. That's how it feels. I don't know enough about the design to say that.
Yeah.
But what I will say is that it grokked, right? The whole thing grokked uniformly. And I would love to see what does the RPG tabletop, pen and paper RPG look like in the Age of Sigmar. I think if they put that out, we would learn more about the world just by necessity than we would through 100 novels.
Yeah.
Right. So I wonder if they're even thinking, or if anybody's asked them or requested that license. That would be something interesting.
Or even like a Hero Quest.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. A Hero Quest 2.0 Age of Sigmar edition.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Well, as always, we want to know what you think. So make sure to leave your comments down below with what you, I'm sorry, everybody watching live that you can't. Like I said, I will fix that in the future. But you do make sure to leave your comments down below of any memories you have from RPGs. Have you ever adapted Warhammer for an RPG? Have you ever played the actual Warhammer RPG? And also, Tom and I would love to know any of your stories from playing Warhammer Online, as we were both addicted to that game for years. Trust me, we would love you to nerd out and share your own positive memories of that MMO. Gone but not forgotten. We will love you always. And yes, we know about the retro server and all that. But it's just not the same.
It's not.
It's not the same. Like we're aware of it. You don't need to share. We know. We've loaded it up. We've done it. We've played it. It's okay. It's just not the same thing. At any rate, so please do share that. As always, share what you were working on, what you were painting during this, because we love to think that we're helping make models in the world become painted and not be gray anymore. Always a very good thing. All right. So with that, Tom, any final thoughts before we sign off here?
No. We have hopefully coming down the line soon. We'll have some more time updates.
Yep. Yeah, it's been very busy. Obviously, this is a super busy time of year, and I've been on the road a lot, so we do apologize. We're building up a list of changes. It's not that they're not being done. And thank you to everybody who's been sending feedback. I very, very much appreciate that. We are reading it all. We are taking it all in. So certainly by the end of the month, we will have an update. Holidays are always tough, but we will get it done. So if you're interested in what I'm talking about, to see the Mordheim AOS project, that link will be down below as well, of course. So feel free to check that out. We welcome all feedback. In fact, we love it. We need it. So please do play some games and give us some feedback. But with that, I will say thank you very much for watching. As always, we greatly appreciate it. Thank you, Tom, for joining me for another wonderful Warhammer Weekly. And to all of you out there, we'll see you next Wednesday.